Jess, hey, how's it going?
Hello, hey Charles. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing really well. So I'm so excited to talk with you about Star Trek: Strange New World because it's a show that I've had a chance to see and is really fascinating to me. You
Great.
know,
I'm glad to hear
it's really world building.
it.
So my starting point is actually something that I had read, an interview that I had read with your co-showrunner.
Mm-hmm.
So your co-showrunner in the interview says a lot of Chapel, the character that you play, comes from when we cast you, when we cast Jess Bush as Chapel. What are her strengths? How can we play to that?
Yeah,
So that really fascinated me because, usually I think of it sort of the other way, that you're
absolutely.
casting to the character, but it seems like they've sort of done the opposite here. So I was wondering, what are those? What are your strengths that
Well, I mean, it's quite hard to know what other people see in you. Like it's what you think you project is often very different to how you're perceived. So I think in the casting process, it would be, I think in the original stages it was so vague and secretive. I didn't really have that much information, so I was just kind of giving myself to the material as much as I could and giving my interpretation of it. So whatever the group of people that had the decision making powers saw, I bet it was different for every person. It's probably just some kind of intangible quality, that spoke to them. But in regards to like how I've maybe seen how the writers have responded to me and how it's been a conversation over the time that we've been shooting. You can tell that the character is building out in a way that's responding to what we're doing, and it's more of like an exchange. It's really cool. And I think I can kind of maybe speak to what Chapel and I share, which might be as much as I can really interpret. But I think that we're both quite like rough and tumble and adaptable and playful in the way that we interact with people, and maybe very ambitious, I think, and curious. I think they're probably our key qualities that we do share.
so fascinating because you do possess a lot of strengths. It's fun kind of asking you about what they are, but I noticed them too. So
Oh.
one thing that really is of such interest to me and I'm fascinated is that you are a visual artist. That is who you are, and a visual artist and a performer, and particularly your work and your art with Bee Totem. When I was reading about that, I was just so fascinated by it. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about Bee Totem, and then also that you're able to bring in your own jewelry designs into the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of cool. I mean, I can't tell you when, but they did manage to make it in, and I'm wearing them right now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so yeah, I've been a visual artist since I was a kid, really, and have been making and selling work professionally since I was maybe like 19. Um, the Bee Totem series is one that's very close to my heart, and I think probably the most significant work that I've ever made. And I've been working on it for about 3 years now, and I probably will continue to work on it probably forever. It feels like I feel there's a deeper commitment to it than anything that I've made visually before, and it's the first thing I made where I can honestly say I don't really care who looks at it. Like I just am so committed to just plodding along forever at this pursuit, which I think speaks to how I feel. Like I just feel I really believe in the work. And so what it is I collect dead honeybees from beekeepers, and after they've died, of course, and preserve each bee in a sphere of crystal resin, which is a very difficult process. really hard to get it right. Chemically dangerous, really bad for me. But when you get it, it's really hard to get it right. And when you do, it's so beautiful. If you get them perfectly in the center with no bubbles and it's like a perfect glass orb, you can feel the human effort that's required to make that. And it's really potent. So I make these spheres, and then I suspend thousands of them from the ceiling by like very fine jewelry chain at different heights to make different shapes, and then light them with so I collaborate with like a projection artist to make a light show onto them, and also a sound designer to make a soundscape for the piece. So it's like very immersive. And sometimes I just let them play with natural light and air, and other times put it in like a warehouse space and make it more of like an immersive experience. And I mean, the ideas at the center of it, again, I can't really speak to how it's received by other people, but what's at the core of it for me is recognizing that insects, and specifically bees, play such an important role in our lives being livable and our earth functioning. And they kind of just exist invisibly, you know, they're kind of everywhere and you don't really notice them, and they die a lot. And suspending each one in a sphere of crystal resin really like makes you look at one, and like it really magnifies the intelligence and the beauty of a single bee. And also causes you to pause and think about the moment that it died, because it's frozen in that moment after its death. So it's kind of like a memorial. And so you're drawn at once, you're like drawn in to see one, but then when you put them in en masse, it's really breathtaking and also really sad, you know, like it's very still, and you're forced to kind of appreciate both sides of it. And the plan, just to try and keep it short, is to build a cathedral out of several thousands of them that you can kind of go inside and sit in the quiet and feel the immensity of that. So that's a little bit about it.
Yeah, I just want to say that sounds so fascinating. I'm so amazed by the pursuits that you have.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's I don't know, sometimes it's a bit crazy, but so, yeah, it's very close to my heart.
So when you're on a show like Star Trek, and the sort of the gravity of the show comes in, the immenseness of it, the world building, how do you come to the show? How do you find your way to Star Trek?
Yeah, I mean, I remember in the beginning just being like, we had to do like camera test day, where you have spent all these weeks trying on different hair and makeup and clothes, all this stuff. And then there's a day where it all comes together at once, and you put it all on, and then you walk into the set and you stand on the bridge, and they like point 1,000 cameras at you and just like see it all working at once. And that for me was like, I remember walking into the set, which by the way, the sets are insane. Like the whole stage is just like this crazy giant maze of amazing set pieces. So you like walk into the stages, and I had to like walk through the dark, and there's all the members of the crew with their different departments, and you had to like walk through, and I was in my outfit, and then someone walked up with a box that was like velvet lined, and it had like the Delta shield in it, and they like came up and like put it on me, and I was like, oh. It was a real moment. And yeah. Like, oh. So that for me was like that was like, you're here. But also just like on a day-to-day basis, I think I've become more seasoned at it as we've gone on, as you would expect. But yeah, I mean, it always feels very big, very significant. It's such a giant production and a really big world to inhabit, that it's like, I think one of the key skills that we hone is to like be in the middle of this crazy situation and behave like it's not. You have to kind of convince yourself that everything's really chill and this is normal, and so you can relax and play. So yeah, it's a real, I think that is like a very specialized skill.
For sure. Yeah, I think I remember when those sets were being built only a couple of years ago in Toronto, just prior to the pandemic, and seeing, imagining what they would look like in the show. And boy, does it look massive and immense and incredible.
And they're constantly building new ones. Like
Yeah.
it's always happening. And like you'll walk into one stage and there'll be a room that is one thing, and then 2 days later it will be something completely different. Like it's wild.
It's really fascinating, sort of comparing you now to you on the show.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're at Chapel, obviously the first thing is that you disguise your accent, that you are Australian, and the show you aren't. And in interesting contrast, that some of your co-stars get to use their accents.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
some of them, everyone's sort of trying differently, but you're hiding your accent. And one of the biggest things is that you present extremely differently. Seeing you now and seeing you as Chapel, it's like almost two different people.
Yeah,
so
it's fun. It's cool.
I want to know, how do you feel like this character is like unlike you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, for me, like the accent for me is a really firm way across the line. As soon as I move into the accent, my physicality changes and everything about me kind of switches into this other person. So that's really cool. I feel like, yeah, accents, they don't only change the way that your mouth moves, they change the way that you kind of think and the emphasis that you put on certain things. And it's a whole cultural thing, so that's really cool. I mean, like emotionally and mentally, I think some key differences between us, so that I think she's just a little bit bolder than I am. And I don't know, she's very like, she's I don't want to say she's not promiscuous, but she likes to keep it light romantically, and she's open to whatever and loves meeting new people that way. And I'm not like that. I'm very like, I really like love, and I like to love deeply, and I'm a monogamist.
Yeah.
Like we're very kind of different in that way. Yeah, and other things, but that's a few to start.
I did notice, and I do enjoy the word bold. Yeah. Anytime you say bold and the Star Trek franchise, I think, okay, that really does well together.
Yeah.
So we talked about it a little bit, but what's it like to shoot the show in Toronto? Where I am, in the set in Mississauga, but just to be in the city of Toronto. I don't know, like, I imagine you were probably based in Sydney, and that you packed up your whole life and, moved to Toronto. So what's it like shooting here?
It's cool. I mean, we're heading into the summer now, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I think Toronto summer is really special because you have such a long winter here. That's so cold and beautiful, but like so cold. And so
no, this year was a lot. This year was even more.
So long. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And I think
so long and so cold. Yes.
Yeah, much more than last year. But I think that lends to people just really get into the summer. Like they get so invigorated by the good weather, and it becomes so central to the day, and I think that's really beautiful, like being out in that energy on the street when people are just like loving the tulips and loving the cherry blossoms and just being outside together and really like appreciating it. I think that's really special to witness, because I think that in Australia, like, we have such beautiful weather, but there's much more of an equilibrium, so people kind of just take it for granted,
Yeah.
But also the winter is beautiful. I think it's great. And also you have very cute animals here, and they won't kill you as much as animals will in where I'm from.
That is true. Yes.
Yeah.
Some of those squirrels are a little scary, but otherwise.
Yeah, they are a little bold. It feels to me, and I haven't been here for that long, so I could be misguided with this, but it feels like you are looked after here. Like your government looks after you guys in a similar way that they do in Australia, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the fun part where I've had a chance to see the first 5 episodes, and people are getting to know the show, getting to see it, getting to be surprised by it. And what we learn about your character comes slowly. I mean,
Yes.
I think that's fair to say that, you know, in the first few episodes, we get little hints here and there, but you know, the heart of Chapel is sort of a bit later on, you know, without giving away too much. What's something that we can expect to see coming up?
So yeah, you're right. I think in the first little episodes, there's little hints of Chapel. She comes in, she has some wisecracks and things to say and things to help with. I think in episode 5, you kind of get to a bit more of an insight into who she is. And it's a fun one. And I don't know how much more I can say than that, but I think that's where you kind of really get to see her.
And I think that I noticed just now, do you have Federation earrings?
Oh, I have one, yeah.
One?
Yeah.
Just one.
Just
but
one.
Such an artist thing to do, of course. That's not your design, is it?
No, Chrissy, who plays Lan, she made them for us she got them made for a wrap gift last season.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's got CC Christine Chapel engraved.
Oh, that's so amazing.
I love it.
Wow. That's like, well, yeah, one of a kind stuff that only you can have.
Exactly.
So one of the things that I have been sort of hinting at a little bit, and I'm so curious about this for you because I don't like when you were growing up, were you watching a lot of Star Trek shows? Did you have a sort of a background in Star Trek? What kind of shows have you been watching? What has been interesting for you?
So I was aware of Star Trek. I've always, who isn't, you know, like it's such a cultural phenomenon. But I really had no idea how influential it was. I didn't watch it as a child, but it's been such a wondrous education. It's been so wonderful to kind of really dive into it and be a part of it. I think it's such a special cultural beast. I think it's always pushed the envelope and always asked for more and for better, you know, from people and for people. And I think they've always fit in that place that haven't kind of gone stale. They've always kind of moved with the times to keep pushing. But what have I been watching? Okay, I just went off on a bit of a tangent there. Sorry about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, there's so many shows. Everybody's really responding to this show. I'm seeing a lot of people getting into your show, but I'm curious, as a viewer, what kind of things, you know, and you're certainly filming a lot, but what kind of things inspire you as a viewer? What kind of shows have really been of interest to you? I
have been loving The Boys. Are you familiar with the show The Boys? I mean, they
also shoots in Toronto.
Yeah. I think it's such a fantastic show. I think it's brilliantly acted. I think it's so punchy and so brilliant, and I love it. I can't wait for more. I'm really glad they're shooting another season. So I've been watching The Boys. What have I really liked recently? I loved Maid with Margaret Qualley.
Yeah.
That performance was one of my favorite performances maybe ever. I think she's fantastic. I went to the movies and saw The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, the new Nicolas Cage movie, and it is so good. I think one of my favorite movies. I've seen it in such a long time. I think he is so fascinating and so good. I love him. And what did I watch? It's such a random mixed bag, but also this World War II film called 1917.
Yeah, shot in one take, right?
Yes. And also just recently I watched a really old classic film that was so beautiful, called The Best Years of Our Lives. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yes, yeah, I have. Yeah.
It's about PTSD, soldiers who've returned.
Yeah, another war movie. Yeah,
and it's I think it's so ahead of its time and just so moving. I thought it was brilliant. So that's
Now
kind of,
I'm going to check that one out now because of your recommendation.
yeah, do. It's great.
So there's so many sort of hints on the show. It's almost like, you know, again, I'm gathering all the information I can. What I really find interesting is visually on the show, you know, Chapel, I think sort of brightness or white. You wear the white Federation uniform, and even your hair, you know, it's very, very bright. And you know, when I'm thinking of when I'm thinking of all the hints, it just seems like you're a beacon of brightness. So, like, am I reading it correctly? Am I getting the hints? Am I even allowed to know about that?
Well, I think like I think that was a happy accident. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I think like in the original like process of the character coming together in the design phases, you know, when we were trying on hair and makeup and clothes and stuff, it was just there was many different options, and we just kind of negotiated our way to that point. And I don't think it was like predetermined. We were just like, white jumpsuit, blue jumpsuit, white's better. The blonde hair, really white hair, yeah, looks good. You know, like kind of just like happened together, and maybe that was more of maybe that instinctively was what we all saw for her, but I don't think it was like intellectualized. But yeah, I've been compared to a fluorescent tube light. So
that's always a lovely comparison.
Yeah, totally.
That's what we want to be.
Yeah, but I guess I mean, yeah, I think that she, in a way, I feel that Chapel, she wants to, like the brightness of her, as you're referring to, I think that she wants to illuminate parts of people that are maybe like, she just wants people to be more honest about themselves as well. I think just she's very like, I see you, it's okay, just be more honest about it. And I think there's like an illuminating part of her in that way, you know, like maybe that's what it is.
That's a great hint. I want to ask you one more thing that, you know, simple about the show. What's the reaction been like for you? What's it been like that people have been coming to this show and watching it and seeing you and responding to it?
It's been so wonderful. It's, you know, I think obviously just with the unknown, just before it came out, there was a bit of like a going over the edge of the roller coaster feeling of like, oh my God, I gotta see it, you know, like that kind of vibe. But it's just been people have just been so lovely and so excited and receptive and supportive. It's been such an incredible experience for me. I've never done anything like this, and every day is just like a wonderful surprise. It's great.
Yeah. How do you feel about doing this too? Are you getting used to this sort of?
Yeah. I mean, interviews used to make me nervous, but now I feel I love it. I love talking to you. I think it's really fun. I think that also having conversations with people like yourself, it deepens my investigation as well. You know, like talking to people is important. You like inspire new paths of thought for me too.
Yeah, I used to get nervous as well too, but then I realized that I enjoy so much hearing from you.
Yeah,
you're still an enigma to me. I feel like I've learned a lot, and I'm still processing everything, and I'm figuring it all out. But one thing I do know is it was really a pleasure.
Such a pleasure, Charles. Thank you so much.